the Pioneer. Oh, no, we're starting in the Modern seat. So I thought we were going to start in the Pioneer, but it looks like we're going to start in the Modern, where we've got 4 color control versus Jeskai Breach. On paper, who do you think's favored here, game 1?
This is a really close matchup. Both players are sporting 4 copies of the One Ring.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get onto
And
that.
yeah, this is I really don't know who I want to be favored or who I would say is favored. I I think I'm gonna go with the 4 color control side. There's a lot more, like leyline binding and stuff to be able to answer the underworld breaches. Urza Saga does kind of throw in the wrench in that plan because that's a card that's good against the 1-for-1 spot removal. And yeah, I'm gonna go with the 4 color, but I think it's really, really close.
Do you think that obviously now we're in the top 8, or in fact we're in the top 4, it is open deck lists? The whole tournament's been closed. Now we're in the top 8. It's been open. Is that going to play a factor into this with keeping the opening 7, or are they just going to? I know I'm against this deck. I know generically what it does. I'm going to keep this. I'm going to do my game plan, which is kind of something we should talk about later on. Is how people try to not lose the game more than win the game. But we'll talk about that later on.
I think the open deck list probably favored the 4 color control side of things more than the Jeskai or the Jeskai breach side of things. Or actually, excuse me, vice versa. So 4 color control, like a lot of its cards are kind of do the same thing. You have a lot of card advantage engines. You have a lot of like mana ramp, the delighted halfling, the red and 6. So like you're not going to like the 4 color control deck is more about keeping a hand of just lands and spells. It doesn't really matter what the spells are. From the Jeskai breach side of things, now that you're playing against 4 color versus something like, say, Yawgmoth, or maybe a deck that's like Tron, like trying to race you and things like that you need to put pressure on. This is a matchup where the Jeskai breach player wants to kind of try to play a bit of a longer game alongside the 4 color deck. Specifically, this card that we talked about here, Urza Saga, one of the better cards in the matchup. There's a lot of spot removal on Brinson side of things, but doesn't really have a good, clean answer to that Saga in a game 1 situation.
Now, one of the powers of these 4 card decks, right, is their ability to 2-for-1. To grind. This is how they're going to gain their advantage. Super powerful cards in the early game and in the late game. And we've just been told that Matthew on the right of your screen here, the Jeskai Breach player, did mulligan down to 5 in this opening game.
Yeah, Mulligan, Mulligan to 5 is rough, but Urza Saga does get a lot of those cards back. You can generate 2 tokens and get the artifact in the 3rd chapter, which can maybe get something like a Mishra's Bauble to even replace itself further. And is that a turn? Or we're searching for
We're
Elesh
searching
We're
for
going
it.
to
We're not
cast it. We're
casting
going
it.
to cast it next turn, though.
I'm trying to think like what ways have we got to get that off the battlefield. I think it is G. Oh no, we've got Unholy Heats. No, hold on, it's 7 toughness, isn't it?
7 toughness.
We're gonna have to double spell to get off the battlefield. If not, Teferi bounce. It looks like they're the other way.
Yeah, 2 Teferis, no Otawaras. Now, the one thing I will say that specifically in the sense of Unholy Heat plus Underworld Breach, it's not too difficult because you can cast the first Unholy Heat and then get the second Unholy Heat from the Breach. Specifically with Underworld Breach, it's not an enters the battlefield trigger. The Underworld Breach specifically just says it gives each non-land card in your graveyard escape. So it's not something like when Underworld Breach enters the battlefield, do X. It just gives them inherently the ability. So Elishnorn doesn't necessarily stop Underworld Breach.
I was going to wait for that to bring it up so you could talk about the interaction, but you're already 2 steps ahead like you've been all weekend, my friend. Good effort. And I do want to talk about these basics. We've been talking about them all day long. What basics people bring. These ones look like they've been altered. These are the unglued ones because I know I use these, but normally mine have got like a nice little original board around them, should we say. These have definitely been altered.
Yeah, well, I guess I was gonna say old school, unglued. It's not really old school because they're a little, like you said, that the new it's like old school meets new school kind of thing. It's like the secret layer, MTGX, whatever the new secret layer they decide to put out there. It looked nice. I will say that. I appreciate them.
Still, for anybody out there, the Lands Guru count is 0 currently on stream for us, which is I'm a little bit hurt by it, but tomorrow say is Legacy 5K, so those big expensive decks are going to be getting pulled out tomorrow. So fingers crossed we get to see some of those Guru Lands make their way to the second part of the day where me and Devon will be back commentating. So if you think you'd like yourself a little bit of Legacy, make sure you hit that follow button and make sure that notification bell is on because you don't want to miss any action when it happens. As we see Saga kind of doing a lot of work.
Yeah, we did talk about how Urza Saga is pretty good at pressuring the 4-color deck. You know what's really good at blocking Urza Saga tokens? A 4/7.
At the minute, they can get bigger. They can get bigger. And we're going to play an Emery here. So Emery against the battlefield. It will not mill the top 4 cards because remember all the triggers are turned off because of Mummy on the other side, Ella Schnorren herself. But we do get double triggers over on Brinson's side. If you wanted to play something like a Leyland's Binding, it would trigger twice, or something like a Solitude. So we'll see how this plays out.
If you cast the ring, enters the battlefield, you get 2 protection triggers.
That's relevant. It's relevant. I love it. Stipular for the rules. I'm all about that. And here comes Omnath.
You know, it is relevant. Drawing
Yeah.
2 off an Omnath. Oh boy. And then fetch land getting
we drew a fetch land and a ring as well. Just to really rub it in. So we're gonna gain 4 life. We're gonna get 4. Do we gain 4 life twice, or do we gain 4 life and then get the mana?
So the Omnath trigger, the way that it works is so you play the fetch land, you get 2 Omnath triggers. The first one gains you 4, the second one gets you mana, and then when you break the fetch land, the Omnath triggers twice again. The first trigger will deal 4 to your opponent, and then the second trigger will essentially do nothing because you've already resolved the first 3 abilities of Omnath.
Value, I believe is what it's called. Absolute value. And that's why we see this, as a one of in these decks. And kind of this is kind of meant to be like the ring deck of choice, so to speak, right? Very popular currently in Modern. And we're seeing why. Managing to get themselves into the top 4 and put themselves currently in a really good position to try and potentially take down this game 1.
Yeah, Brinson's got 4 mana floating here, plus 2 untapped lands, access to 6 mana. Like you said, you picked up a copy of the ring, so it has plenty of stuff to be able to do. I imagine you likely want to deploy that. But one thing that we did talk about, we are very, very far away from comboing from the breach side of things. But one thing we want to mention again is that the fastest Oracle kill does not really care about the one ring protection.
No.
So that is something to keep in mind maybe down the road. Not this game, might not matter this game, but also given the fact that Elishnorn shutting off the fastest Oracle trigger, that could be pretty relevant.
Yeah, that's huge in itself. But we've seen that there's just Modern in general is adapting to that, right? We've seen in Yawgmoth now moving away from Blood Artist because Blood Artist is a target effect. Obviously, we're moving across to the, remind me what they've replaced it with now. The one that doesn't target, basically your opponents. It says all opponents lose 1 life instead of target opponent loses 1 life. It's got its up and down side, but we do see the meta kind of evolving to it as this Ren 6 has now got 7 loyalty counters on it.
That's a lot.
I'm pretty sure if we cash that one in and just been able to rinse and repeat lightning bolts and coolings, it's going to be a real quick game.
Yeah, I don't really think that we can ever beat Ren Emblem with a lightning bolt. I mean, theoretically, but at the current juncture, it looks like I'm trying to get a good look of what is in Matthew's hand. I saw a copy of the ring.
Yeah, I think it's got 2 copies.
2 copies of the ring, maybe it looks like an expressive. I think I saw a fetch land in there as well. So, I mean, I guess you can go towards the ring, but the ring draws a lot of cards. I'm not sure that it beats a Red Emblem, though.
We're going to see it all pan out, and so is everybody at home and looking at it. It looks like all 3 games are still in this. Remember, 2 of the 3 players in the team need to win to advance themselves to the finals. They've been battling out all day long. 4 teams left. We just need 2 more, and we're going to bring that to you straight after this round concludes. So make sure get yourself a cup of tea, stick around. A lot more magic in Pioneer, Modern, and Legacy to come.
I thought you told me you didn't like tea.
Look, I said that off air in secret, so now everyone in Britain's asleep now, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I do hate that. I'm very British and patriotic, and yet I don't drink tea. I do upset. Soliport Cutthroat, thank you very much, chat. I do appreciate you helping me out there.
All right, we got some mana here. I will guess this is an expressive iteration. We're thinking about casting it. I think we just said go.
Okay.
All right, decided against that.
Yeah, we're going to go construct route by the looks of it. And we're cashing in this Ren 6. Get ourselves a Ren 6 emblem. Remember, that means that we can discard a land from our hand, and then we can cast sorceries and instants from our graveyard. Trigger. Bolt.
We're just going upstairs.
That's great. That's great.
Because we had red mana from the Omnath plus 3 other red sources. Yep. All right. Well, we answered that question.
That is. I think the other tables are kind of getting cleared up. There's a mono green devotion managed to take down game 1 against the Atarka red, and then Reanimator manages to take down game number 1 against Death and Taxes. I'm going to ask the production team any games. Okay, it looks like Pioneer's just starting to draw that opening, so they finished so on. So let's move ourselves across to Pioneer. remember Atarka Red is going to be on the play, but that doesn't look like Atarka Red cards in the hand to me.
Yeah, I actually just realized this when I was looking at the deck list. We have we have this happen a couple of times on production on camera, and sometimes players will jokingly call their deck something that it's not. So this Atarka Red deck is actually not Atarka Red. It's as Abzan Greasebank. So keep that in mind.
Oh, in that case, they deserve the loss then. He's trying to troll us in the booth. But it looks like they are taking a mulligan. And this is one of the decks in Pioneer that kind of, it's got its game plan and that's it. It's straight to the point, right? And mulligans happen quite a lot with this deck, I would say, opposed to some of the other decks in the format.
Yeah, exactly. Both of these decks are pretty much just kind of really two ships passing in the night kind of thing. As far as post sideboard, I guess you could say that the Greasefang deck is going to sideboard more in, given that the mono green devotion deck is typically all Karn targets. So as far as play is concerned, the Greasefang deck probably has a slightly more play. But I mean, both this is really just trying to set up what turn 2 Grizzly Salvage, try to put a Parhelion into the graveyard, find a Greasefang, and attack for a whole bunch of damage. And the one card that matters easily the most in this matchup from the green devotion side of things is Karn, given that it shuts off
100%.
artifacts. So you can't activate something like a Parhelion, and that's really the card that Grayson is looking for.
So that's actually the game plan, right? Is that a mongoose hitting the battlefield?
It's kind of like, I guess the 2023 version of Mongoose. It's called Noose Constrictor, but for all intents and purposes, it's very, very, for those of you who remember the Wild Mongoose, big shout out to the old school players out there. But
no, look at that straight up. So obviously, I'm looking at this. This is a 2/2 with reach. Obviously, that's not the main reason that it's in the deck, right?
No, not 2/2 with reach. Although having reach is pretty relevant against spirits. But yeah, this is a way to discard a Parhelion from our hand. So we see a Pithing Needle. Now it's interesting here. Mason does have a copy of a Parhelion, but if you discard the Parhelion in response, I wonder what the needle named. Actually, I'm curious. I wonder if we can maybe check that out.
They'll be trying to find out. Also, I love the art of this Pithing Needle. This is the Inkmoth Nexus being opened up. And obviously, I keep going about it. I do love my references to Inkmoth. I'm just looking at what chat's saying here.
All right, well, let's see if we can. I can't see that. Right here.
Can't read that either.
I tried.
Can that? Oh, okay. It's the Noose Constrictor. It's actually named. Love it.
Interesting, because that's kind of weird, because Mason did have the copy of Parhelion in hand, could have responded to the Pithing Needle and discarded the Parhelion, but instead is just kind of okay with Grayson naming the Noose Constrictor instead of the Parhelion, and had the Greasefang too. That's an interesting line here from Mason.
Well, I like how both of these players, like how it lined up. You play to what you know and the knowledge you've got on the board, right? And I understand why both players did it here, and obviously the way it's panning out is. We'll see, but being able to turn off the discard outlet there, that's pretty key. Well, clearly it's key as we see the Greasefang come down again. Super powerful card, the namesake card of the deck by itself, just a 4/3, but the main ability is getting the vehicles out of the graveyard. And this is just like, we're just cooking on gas now. Look at all these threats start hitting the battlefield. Might and a Pelucanos to the turn.
Yeah, and the Haywire Med as well. That can go ahead and cover, if the Parhelion does hit the graveyard somehow here for Mason, the Haywire Med can just go ahead and kill that in response to a crew. So we're going to go ahead and go for a Grizzly Salvage here, but no, I guess what we're looking for at this point is probably a Chariot, because with at least with Chariot, so Chariot would make 2/2/2s. You could go to combat, get the Chariot back, respond, or go to crew, and then if the Haywire Mite gets popped in response, you could then crew with the other creature, the Greasefang that you have. But the reason that Parhelion wouldn't work is because you would crew with the Greasefang, respond with Haywire Mite, and then there's no creature to then recrew the Parhelion there.
I do have a question for you that I literally cannot work out. What is that card, the green card above the Mite there, just underneath the
That's an Elvish Mystic. It's the commander version of Elvish Mystic.
Oh my god, we found a secret lair that I didn't know. Well, not a secret lair, an alternate art that I didn't know. I did not know that, but that's actually a beautiful art.
I wonder if Mason would have known that.
Of course he would. Mason knows everything, let's be honest. The man is great in the booth. Okay, we're kind of stacking up. How much mana have we got? Devotion wise, we've got 7 devotion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 devotion.
6. Yeah. So 6 devotion plus the 2 elves is access to 8 mana.
Ooh.
We're gonna go ahead and play a cav.
One
So
more float in. So we find ourselves a basic that goes into the graveyard, as long with a storm that could be relevant next turn. Storm the Festivals, of course. I believe we've got 1 mana floating, right?
yeah, that's correct. 1 mana floating. So really wants a second Nykthos here because then you can go Legend Roll, keep the new Nykthos, use the 1 floating plus the untapped forest, activate Nykthos for 9, tap an elf, and that's not a Nykthos. Okay, so no storming this turn.
Just to beside you, 3 mana and a troll. So yeah, our devotion count is through the roof. But we are empty-handed and not much else to do for the turn. I don't think we're getting in there for one. So yeah, we're just going to pass the turn back.
Yeah, kind of like this weird
Ooh.
stalemate where you're, is that a Sky Sovereign?
Yeah, that was a Sky Sovereign off top. Not incredible here, but it is a something we could potentially cast if we've got another land in hand. Gets the might off. They do have green mana up, so they can obviously exile it in response if they need to. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just feel like, go on.
The Haywire event makes this really awkward because normally, if you can set up a Parhelion in the graveyard, you'd be able to just kind of like crew and then. But yeah, the Haywire Might being able to kill that Parhelion is kind of awkward. So we're actually going to go. This is a really cool heads up play. So we're going to go for Haywire Might. The boat's going to get exiled. I'm surprised we didn't crew that in response. I thought we were going to do that. Interesting. Well, because the text on Haywire Might specifically says exile target non-creature artifacts. So if you crew the Sky Sovereign in response to the Haywire Might, it's now a creature, and then it wouldn't actually resolve.
It's been a long day for everybody this weekend. Remember, they played 7 rounds just to get where they are now. Now they're currently in the 9th round of Magic. It is a team event, so not only when you finish your match, you go and help your fellow friends. So, a little bit of tiredness can be kicking in. This is one of the key things of going to tournaments. Make sure you take your water bottle, make sure you eat throughout the day. And these slip-ups can happen, but this is the beauty of paper Magic. This is why we love watching these sort of things. You don't get this online. Online triggers happen for you. Nothing gets forgotten on lines. In here, paper Magic, anything can happen. Just like last round where we saw top deck after top deck after top deck and get themselves the W. As we see, mono green, turning and burning, doing what it needs to do, generating loads of mana. We're just trying to find planeswalkers and big threats at this point. Here comes Akira.
Well, we spent 10 mana on a Store of the Festival. We only put a land and an Oath of Nissa onto the battlefield. So
Value.
Not the best storm.
We have seen better, let's be honest. But value's got both sides, right? We can not only just cast it, we can play it from the graveyard. Do we have another one in there? We're having a little check.
I don't think so. I think there was only the one from the Cavalier. I can't remember there being a second storm in the graveyard. See a Kiora untapping Nykthos. Well, if we're untapping Nykthos, we're probably doing something with this mana.
Well, we do have 2 Hydras in amongst our land. They can grow pretty big if we need to. If we need to start turning them sideways.
Is it beatdown time? It's always beatdown time.
Well, look, it's a Dungeons and Dragons card, and I haven't spoke about it. But I'm itching to talk about him. But I think we are on beatdown. So, we're flipping the Pelucanos, making it a 6/6 with a lifelink and reach, I believe. And then if it dies, it gets the 2 3/3 tokens, each with reach and is it life and reach or life and death touch?
Reach and lifelink.
Reach and lifelink. I got it right the first time. I was questioning myself. I was like, no, that's Worm Coil Engine. But it kind of has the same effect as a Worm Coil Engine. Being a Hydra is kind of like a worm looking thing.
Yeah, this card is so huge in this matchup. So there's typical play patterns where if you Parhelion, like let's say the Mono Green Devotion player plays Pelucanos on turn 3, and then the Greasefang player puts Parhelion to play and attacks with a bunch of tokens. The 4/5 token, the 4/5 body from Pelucanos gets to block a 4/4, and then the next turn you can flip the Pelucanos to just race the Parhelion straight up because of the 6/6 lifelink. And here we're going to see that as well. It's really hard for Greasefang to it's. The Greasefang deck is a combo deck of sorts, but it's also limited on the amount of damage output that it can produce, given that, it's really hard to put more than just a Parhelion onto the battlefield. So it's really going to be hard for Mason to be able to get through this amount of damage with this 6/6 lifelinker.
And it looks like that Hydra was a 7/7 coming across. That did get blocked along with the Pelucanos. So just 9 points of damage coming across, dropping Mason down to 7. Semi-locked out the game, Fortsies for the turn. Not exactly what they want. I think we're going to be calling this, and one of the Greens is going to be able to take this down. So we're going to probably end up moving back to our modern match momentarily. But we've seen amazing top decks happen here. We've seen all sorts happen. And are we going to be able to get anything back? So there's a sliver of hope here. Wayfinder, flip the top couple of cards, and
Can't
we
stay
don't.
away.
No, it's gone.
Yeah, can't stay away in the Wayfinder. Trying to look for a vehicle, but doesn't even find it. I mean, even if a vehicle was found, like with Grayson at 24, like I said, the Parhelion, it's going to be really hard to be able to punch through and get through that last points of damage.
Fort sees me. Parhelion. Okay. So Parhelion forces ourselves. That goes to the graveyard. There isn't a Khan on the battlefield right now, just making sure. But then even if it comes across with the damage, the backswing is just going to be too much.
Yeah, Thoughtseize myself. It's a very heads-up play for Mason here. Going to put the Parhelion in the graveyard. But even, we see the Parhelion comes into play, gets crewed off the Grease Fang, 2 5/5s, which means that even with 2 5/5 blockers plus the Satyr Wayfinder, if we do some quick maths, the Nykthos can, say, make layers. Yeah, I mean, even if we make both layers, say, 4 4s or 5 5s, I'm assuming we have enough mana to make them both into 5 5s. Yeah, I think we're done.
Yeah, we're going to take... So that's going to face the Angels, I think, go towards Cura. Gets that off the battlefield. But yeah, I think it's just too much here. With the layers that are going to be able to be activated, we can block 3 creatures here. Let's say we block the 3 biggest ones, Plukonos, Cavalier, and potentially one of these Hydras. That's still more than 5 damage coming across. Is there anything we need to play around? Fatal Push, potentially? Are we kind of bluffing something here?
I mean, I guess theoretically Fatal Push on one of the layer of the Hydras, but you can go Nykthos. You can actually make both layers into 5 5s because Mason is at 5. So the 2 layers, the Cav and the Pelucranos, are all lethal by themselves. Yeah, it's even more mana. So let's say there's 4 lethal attackers, 3 blockers, plus 1 Fatal Push. Hypothetically, no, because that would still have you taking 6 from the 2 elves and the Ultra Troll. So yeah, this is more than enough.
If my math's right, it's like 26 mana in the pool to activate these, making both Hydras like 13s coming across. And yeah, we're going to be scooping that one up. So congratulations to Grayson taking that down. We're going to move straight across to our mod and try and catch all the action here. Remember, this is Jeskai Breach versus 4 color... Not 4 color elementals, I guess we call in this build.
Yeah, 4 color Omnath, 4 color. I kind of lumped them all together, but yeah, you're right. This is not really the control version. This is more of the 4 color Omnath deck.
4 color ring. That's what it is. 4 color ring. Because both of these decks have got the full 4 copies in them. But Haywire Mites on the battlefield.
Well, wait a minute though. Matthew has 4 colors and 4 rings. So is Matthew also a 4 color ring deck?
For flavor text, I'm gonna say yes.
Okay.
But this day game looks a lot different than the game 1 where we were watching.
Yeah, no, it looks like I think both players had a copy of the ring. It looks like both players dealt with opposing copies of the ring. My guess is one was Haywire Might and potentially one was maybe Leyline Binding or something. But yeah, it looks like we have a couple of construct tokens here from a Saga along with an Emery, likely drawing some extra cards off Bauble. Matthew appears to be pretty ahead this game.
That's a big grip of cards, but here comes big old Omnath with a land trigger. If we've got a fetch land, it doesn't look like if we do with a deployment, we're going to play just the fetch here. The shock. Steam Vent taps, not going to pay the extra 2 life. We're going to gain 4 life from it. And just pass the turn back. So shield potentially down. Normally, I don't know however long, whenever Monster Horizons 2 came out, it used to be, my opponent's tapped out, cool, they don't have any spells. Now we live in a world where that's not the case. So there are instant speed ways of things happening. Looking at the deck lists, we've got 3 endurances, 2 furies, and 4 solitudes. We don't know how many stayed in or not, but that's the route that we can go. Or we've got to be playing around on Matthew's side because this is now open deck list. It hasn't been all day. 7 rounds of Magic, closed deck list. Top 8, we pass it out to them. So before each game and during sideboarding, you get to look at your opponent's full 75 and to kind of memorize what you're playing around, and that's where the mind games happen.
Speaking of that 4th color here, well, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but this prismatic ending for 4, going to go ahead and target an Omnath here. That's a really big play.
Yeah, that's huge. It's one of the only ways we've got to get rid of it, right? Unholy Heat and prismatic endings. I'm trying to look at
Let me go in for a Haywire Might.
Oh, sideboard
6. Go ahead.
No, I was looking. I was like, I don't see any in the main, so they're out of the sideboard. 2 prismatic endings in the sideboard, and coming into effect, they're being able to take that Omnath off the battlefield.
Yeah, likely wanted to bring in Prismatic Ending to answer something like Renin 6. That's more of that's the primary card that you
Ring.
want to bring it in for. Yeah, that's fair. I guess there is 4 colors, available
Yeah.
to Matthew, so being able to X=4 is pretty important versus the Ring versus Omnath. Yeah, that is huge.
This is nice. Teferi comes down and just take away one of those tokens, generate a little bit more value, get to draw a card from it. And then the lightning bolt's going to go after the Emery. So we are cleaning the battlefield up. Kind of this Teferi is going to stay around, potentially not for much longer. But with your opponent, with Vincent down to 9 life, do you prefer to go face now that your battlefield shrunk, or do you think getting Teferi off the battlefield is worth it?
It's kind of tough. It depends on how many artifacts that you can deploy this turn.
Mhm.
If I can make this construct token into a 2-turn clock, I'm going face. Right, with currently a 2/2, we'd have to play 2 more artifacts to be able to have it be a 4/4 and the 1/1 haywire by putting Brinson down to 4. So I think best place to start here is start off with the iteration, see if you can find some artifacts to grow that construct, and then like let's say maybe you find 1 artifact off of the expressive iteration, you can only make it a 3/3, which we did find a saga and a ring.
And
Those
a
are
ring.
2 pretty good cards.
Having it, we've got it. Oh, so we have to play the Saga for our turn for our land job. Obviously, it comes in with a counter on chapter 1, 4 mana up, and yeah, we're just going to slam this ring. We've seen this multiple times. This is going to enter the battlefield, giving us protection from everything because we did cast it. It is also indestructible, and then we get the flavor of getting tempted by the ring. Everyone that's watched Lord of the Rings knows fully about this, and we're going to see a lot of this, I think, in the next couple of weeks when we
Oh yeah.
get the modern Pro Tour. Lord of the Rings is going to happen in Barcelona.
Yeah, looks like the Haywire might took out the Teferi, and then we would dealt three points to Brinson, putting Brinson down to 6. So that means we currently have 4 power on the battlefield. We can represent at least 1 other power with that the Saga token, even if there are no artifacts in hand. So yeah, this is things are looking really good for Matt here.
One thing to note: no lightning bolts in the 75. So there's no sort of breach lightning bolt thing to finish it off. This is just like the full sort of grinding station combo if that stayed in after game 1. Here comes a prismatic ending. That's going to take the token off the battlefield, potentially the biggest threat currently. Interesting, we have the option to get rid of the ring there if we wanted to, but valuing our life total obviously a lot more. And as you have been speaking about, and so were the lads in the earlier rounds about the power of ring, that you get to draw the cards before you lose the life, and how
Right.
key that is in this modern format.
Yeah, prismatic ending on the token leads me to believe that there's no additional removal spell for there's no solitude or anything in Brinson's hand, because if you had a solitude, you're more likely to
No,
want to fire off the prismatic ending on the ring and then solitude the construct token. But Brinson is really worried about the life total here, given that construct could represent lethal. So that's kind of my read on the
I
situation.
say we've
Although
got
there
two.
are
We've got two in
solitudes.
hand.
So that's a little confusing. Yeah, now looking at Brinson's hand, there are copies of solitudes. I'm wondering if he wanted to go after the ring there with the prismatic ending instead.
Well, it's interesting. We'll see how this pans out. We've got a Doman's veto in hand as well. That looks like what we've decided to keep up. So it looks like we've gone with the ending and veto, hold up solitude if we need to. I can't work out what the other 2 cards in the hand. It might just be lands, potentially a chalice. Pardon me.
Yeah. So I guess you want to hold up veto here, but it's interesting because the veto's not that great against the saga on board, and then also if you're not casting the prismatic ending, you're just giving Matthew access to so many more cards from that ring.
Yep.
It would be a different story if Brinson was able to say go have 6 mana and then 4 for the prismatic ending, 2 to hold up veto. As we see a grinding station here, I don't know if we're gonna fight over this. We'll have to see if Brinson wants to. We do.
Yeah, not much of a fight. Just yep, cool. It happens. There is a Underworld Breach in hand, I see, along with probably about another 8 cards in the grip. So not what we want to be seeing over on Brinson's side, if that's who you're cheering for currently. Here comes the fetch. And again, our life total is super high on Matthew's side. 16 life points with an active ring on the battlefield.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the best part is when you just feel so invincible when you're having to have this card in play, upticking every single turn, drawing an additional 2, 3, 4 cards. You're not really in danger of dying anytime soon off of it. And specifically, this Jeskai Breach deck utilizes the legendary ability or legendary text on the ring so well because of the fact that it has Emery, right? We mentioned being able to replay a ring to reset the first copy if it goes too far. Well, you know what's very powerful when you mill over a breach is you can Emery back, or excuse me, mill over a ring. You can Emery back that ring to get the legend roll and keep the new one to be able to kind of keep looping it. That's what we call a Splinter Twin situation.
Oh yeah, I've seen that multiple times on old Corey's stream when he managed to take down a challenge a couple of weeks ago doing that. It looked disgusting. Playing against that, I'd have been like, oh, cool, yep, can see the scoop. But you know what? We just play this Emery, milled the top 4 cards, but more importantly, that gives us lethal next turn. You know, if we make a construct in a turn, that'll be a 3/3 moving itself to a 4/4. And then with one of these 1-powered creatures, will be lethal. We know about the solitudes in hand though, so not just
Yeah,
game yet.
and Brinson's hand is stacked. Like we mentioned, the multiple copies of Solitude. Brinson has not been playing lands. It's just all spells over there. So, a lot of gas, but it's still just impossible to keep up with the amount of cards that Matthew has from the Ring and these multiple sagas and everything. It just feels like from Matthew's side is replacing itself. And it's really hard for Brinson to keep up just on the battlefield and in terms of the card advantages. We see Solitude going to go after the Emery. Again, that's a fine step. It's a fine start, but it's not, even close to really answering all the problems that are on the battlefield here for Matthew.
No, it does have a lifelink though, so it's a good block if we get to go that route. But as you said, we're kind of just like treading water almost. We're not advancing too much. We're just trying not to lose the game, which is I guess is the first step in Magic. Try not to lose the game and then win the game. It looks like Death in Taxes at the bottom of your screen. Eric's managed to pull it back, go to 1 apiece there. So fighting the good fight. Well, we've got Matthew here trying to again win for their team in team events. So how do you kind of play out with your mates if they start losing? Do you give them the old pat on the back? I don't know, we'll get it next time. Would you guys have a bit of banter and give it, we're not a team with you next time, sort of thing?
I just walk away.
Oh, okay. It's just that. Just don't talk to me. Don't
Yeah.
talk to me. Okay, cool. Got you.
It depends. It depends.
Okay, we got a lot of mana here. That's 7 mana plus a Saga trigger on the stack. If you want to tap that for mana, we're deciding if we want to get a construct on the battlefield with our opponent just at 5 life. That could be a good option we want to go. But then we've got an active ring and plus a huge grip of cards.
Yeah, so I think right now, if I'm remembering correctly, I believe we're with responding to the
Yeah.
Saga Chapter 3 trigger. So I'm wondering if maybe in response to the Chapter 3, if you want to activate the ring to see what you're drawing before you maybe decide what you want to get off the Saga here. We're really just trying to, I guess we're trying to find a removal spell to clear the Solitude out of the way so we can make this construct into a lethal attacker. Potentially, there's a Shadow Spear in Eric's sideboard. I doubt that one came in this matchup, not usually for the 4-color matchup. But if that is a card in Matthew's deck list, then that is something that they want to consider as well.
Yeah, we know that obviously on the other side there's Leyline's Binding, so that's got to be over in Matthew's mindset. What am I playing around? How can I advance my already good board state? I think we're in the situation of how can I possibly lose this game now? And we are going to start off with activating the ring in response to this. Draw yourself a bunch of cards. That is a couple of Ragavans, and I think that was an Unholy Heat as the last card. So there's the answer to the Solitude that's on the battlefield.
I think that's about right. Yep. So it's hard to tell. But yeah, if that isn't an Unholy Heat, we can go ahead and get rid of the Solitude. As far as Leyline Binding is concerned, with the 1 mana up for Brinson, not unable to cast that, I believe. Yeah, no. Does Brinson even have the Swamp Triumph in the deck? Let me take a look here. There is a Zagoth Triumph in the deck list, but from what I could tell, not in play. So unable to cast Binding currently. We do know about that other Solitude in Brinson's hand. So, if this Solitude gets removed, you could say, pitch cast Solitude, the other copy, to be able to kill the construct token and not get lethal this turn. We will have
Well,
to
we
see.
say that with Dash Ragavan, does that change the math? So construct gets exiled.
Damage coming through.
Free. Yeah. So quick math, Will. Good effort.
Still get a Ragavan trigger, which is not anything to scoff at as well.
Well, you could Ragavan trigger, hit a lightning bolt off their deck and lightning bolt them, and that'd obviously be amazing to watch on stream. But we're going to start with this Unholy Heat.
Actually, no. There's only 1 copy of Lightning Bolt in Brinson's deck list, and that's in the graveyard. All right. Well, we found lethal anyways somehow. Okay,
fine. They would get a Reddit 6. I don't know where we're going with that, but cool. We get to level that one up. So I think maybe we'll be able to move across to our legacy match. That's one still probably going while these players are sideboarding. So Death in Taxes versus Reanimator, game number 3. And
that's an Atarka.
that looks like an Atarka, and a very good, nice Atarka on the battlefield. And we might just be going through the motions of this is like gate turn 1.
Yeah, this is typically what happens, Will, when Reanimator is on the play against decks that don't have. Well, I mean, if we look at the deck list, I mean, we can pull up the Death and Taxes deck list real quick here to see exactly what sideboard cards we're working with, because you have to imagine there's something here. Surgical Extraction, that's really the only one. No Leyline of the Voids or anything like that. So, when you don't have those cards in your opening hand, sometimes you get turn 1 Atraxa.
Hey, there's a Krakus on the other side there in the grip, which obviously that can get deployed, bounce target legendary creature. So it's not all doom and gloom. You can't foresee that one.
Yeah, and then if we take a look at the deck list here for Bryan Cole, there is 1 Atraxa and 3 copies of Archon of Cruelty. That's kind of the threat that these Reanimator decks will typically turn to in the face of Karakas. So, maybe if Bryan has some way to access, like maybe an Entomb to put a copy of the Archon into the graveyard and then a way to reanimate that, given the presence of Karakas, really wants to try and find that. As far, past the Karakas, the rest of Eric's hand, not the best. A couple of copies of Mother of Runes, the Council's Judgment, Pithing Needle, I guess could shut off Gristlebrand, but that we're not really going towards that because of the Karakas anyways.
Is there anything you think you'd pick here? Looks like we're picking the enchantment. Obviously, we want to be able to cast more than 1 spell in a turn if needs be.
Yeah, the silence seems to make the most sense. Like, you're a little bit far away from the Council's Judgment, and the Karakas is going to answer the Atraxa anyway, so it does kind of make sense to take the silence. One of your best ways past this at this point is to like draw maybe a way to put a Gristlebrand into play, draw a bunch of cards, and then you basically have to get the Archon into the graveyard in order to have a threat that doesn't get Karakas.
Land, go to combat, bounce it. That's going to go back to hand. Enchantment's going to fall off. That's going to go to the graveyard. Now, can we reset?
Depends. We got a Grief and an Animate Dead. Unfortunately for Bryan, you cannot grief yourself. Unmask is a card that you can target yourself, but the wording on grief specifically says opponents. So definitely can't go towards that. It's hard to take a look at what the other cards that Bryan is holding on to.
Haven't got a good look. I think one of them might be another Grist. I'm not entirely. Oh no, one's a petal at least. So Modern's just starting, but I think that's going to take a little bit of time to kind of get firing. They're just going to start ordering for the first couple of turns as they normally do. We'll stick here a little bit, see if we can get a big threat onto the battlefield, or maybe it's just going to be this grief.
Are we going to animate Dead Grief and make a 2/2?
Hey, you do what you need to do. It can't be Craxus.
Yeah, can't Karakas that one. I mean, it's only not that you need to. It's only a 2/2 anyways. But you're right. Yeah,
it's
got
got
a couple
menace.
of Mother Runes here. Well, we could double block with 2 Mother Runes.
Love it. Okay, cool. So when we tuned into this match and it was turn 1, Atraxa on the battlefield, it looked like potentially game over there and then on the spot, but no, we've got the cards we need, and we've still got a game here, I think.
You see, well, this is actually Plan A. The Animate Dead Grief. This was the plan the whole time.
I love it when a plan comes together. As a Thalia is going to come down, tax all the non-creature spells, make them cost an extra 1. But looks like both players hitting their land drops here, so nothing too big. Maybe getting punished a little bit for not playing that petal out a little bit earlier.
Yeah, Thalia being a first striker also means that it stops the entire just breaks the entire board here. So we're going to be staring at each other for a while. The Mother of Rune's able to protect the Thalia. We're going beatdowns. This is officially a racing situation.
Well, exactly. You can't sit back. You know what I mean? We're going to have to turn things sideways to win this game of Magic. A little bit of life discrepancy here. Maybe they think they cracked a fetch earlier on, but it doesn't look like there's a fetch in there. But we do need kind of a bit more of a clock, I would say.
Well, I mean, I don't know. You got the Thalia kicking in there, the Mother of Runes to protect. I mean, theoretically, Eric is winning this race just with the Thalia versus the Grief, right?
All right, sure, yeah.
Oh, we got the Orion. You want to talk about a way to win the race? How about a 4/5 flyer, Will?
Yep, that's going to do it. That's a good one. Didn't see that one hiding there, sneaking down and below our screen there. But again, closes the game now. We are a land away from that. It's
This
not
is
jump
such
the
a
gun.
weird game.
This is a very weird game. We've seen
Animates
some
on
absolute craziness happen in Legacy and some of the other rounds. And right now, this looks like two bad draft decks going at each other. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
literally.
Except for these are expensive draft decks, let's be honest. Is that Field of Ruin or something? Yeah.
Field of Ruin, yeah.
But it gives us, more importantly, our 5th mana, so we can play this. Flicker the Failure. That's going to come back in untapped.
4/5 flyer. This is, yeah, you're right. This is literally just a limited game. We got a 2/2 menace versus a 4/5 flyer and a 2/1 first striker.
A couple of little 1/1s. We're not far off being at hardcast some of our bigger threats. So let's be tell the truth here.
We do have 6 mana. I mean, Arcana Cruelty only cost 8. You got 2 more lands in hand. Maybe, I guess we know one of the cards in hand is, no, the Atraxa got pitched to the grave,
we
right?
don't know
Okay.
any of the cards now.
Yeah.
But we're not casting anything. So what could this be? Like potentially Fortseas and stuff?
Could just be more lands we're holding. Could be Gristlebrands, like some of the fatties that we are unable to cast.
Here comes some of the big swings now. 6 damage coming in. Silence in the battlefield. And we're scooping it up. Death Tax is taking it down. Eric managed to contain it for his team and get them into the finals. I'm not entirely sure if the modern game is going to continue playing out or not for the stream. I'm just going to let our production team kind of work that one out and whisper in my ear. Okay, well, it looks like we're going to come back to the booth and then we're going to have a real short break before we get to the final. So welcome back. If you just tune in, where have you been all day? Literally, where have you been all day? We've had 7 rounds of Team Magic. That's Pioneer, Modern, and Legacy. Battling it out. Started 92 teams. We're down now and getting to the last 2. So we'll bring you the finals real shortly. Make sure you stick around and we'll see you all real shortly. See you soon.